Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm from Gina K Designs. My YouTube channel contains content that is intended to share paper crafting, tutorials, and inspiration with all of you. All of the products featured in my videos are intended to share my ideas and information with you using the products that I know and love and have purchased with all of my own money. None of this content is sponsored or paid for by anyone other than me. These are solely my own ideas and inspiration. I hope that you enjoy. Today's video will be the start of my new YouTube series called Card Making Basics: The Breakdown. We will be starting from scratch and working our way across all of the different crafty techniques, tools, and information. Every Monday, we'll have a new video in the series. I hope this may help some newbie crafters or may remind some veteran crafters of a forgotten technique or some information that they didn't know. So let's get into it. The biggest necessity for a card maker is the paper, specifically the cardstock. We'll go into a little bit more depth about the cardstock and the weight and why it matters. And then we're going to move into card bases and we'll talk about the sizes and how to create card bases from cardstock. There are many different cardstocks and many different brands along with weights, colors, textures, etc. As a beginner card maker, it may be intimidating, but hopefully I can break it down a little bit for you and answer some of the questions you may have when you walk into the craft store and visit the paper aisle. Okay, so I've got a pile of different color cardstocks, different weights, different manufacturers. I've picked them up from all different places and we'll just kind of go over some of them. The first few things that you want to pay attention to is the weight of the cardstock. And there are two numbers that you should be looking at. You should be looking at the pound and the GSM, which is grams per square meter. So basically the pound is the thickness and the GSM is the amount of fibers in the paper. So the more GSM, the stronger the cardstock is going to be, the stronger and thicker. So for your card bases, you really want to aim for a thick 80 pound and higher. I don't particularly like the 65 pound for a card base because I find it really flimsy and I like a nice sturdy card. So I suggest that you use, 100 pound and higher is the best, but 80 pounds will do if you're layering up your cards. And we'll talk about that more in the future, in future videos when we come to layering. So just going through some of the different brands, I've got some Gina K Designs, I've got some Accent Opaque Digital, and that's from Amazon. I've got Simon Says Stamp. The Gina K Designs is a really nice smooth cardstock, and the smoothness matters when stamping. So for example, the Gina K Designs has a nice slick coating over top of the paper. So when you stamp, it stamps nice and smooth, and it's great for coloring, it's great for Copics, it's great for pencils, and all different kinds of things. If you take a look at the Simon Says Stamp cardstock here, as well as the Gina K Designs cardstock, they're both 100 pounds, but they're both a little bit more of a drier type of cardstock. It doesn't have any coating on top of it, so I wouldn't prefer this for stamping. I would prefer this for die cutting, layering, and card bases, not necessarily for stamping. Now, I'm not saying that these are not quality cardstocks because they definitely are, but a dry cardstock, sometimes you'll notice feathering. When you stamp down on a heavy base weight cardstock and it's not a smooth cardstock and it's got a little bit more tooth to it, sometimes you'll notice that the ink will feather because the fibers really soak in that ink. Test out the cardstock that you have. Try different brands, try different things to see what fits your needs best and then go from there. Gina K Designs cardstock has a variety of colors and it has coordinating inks that match very, very well with the cardstock, as well as coordinating envelopes too. So that might be something to consider when choosing the cardstock that you like. If you want to make sure that everything is matchy, then Gina K is definitely a way to go. And Simon Says Stamp also has matching ink pads to their cardstock as well. Now, the Recollections brand, this is a Michaels brand. When comparing prices, that's a whole other video, but particularly the Michaels cardstock I find to be the cheapest of all. The 65 pound cardstock is fairly smooth. It's a nice smooth stamping cardstock. So it's great for stamping on. It's great for die cutting and layering. and it comes in a wide range of colors. The 110-pound Recollections Cardstock is a nice heavyweight cardstock, great for card bases. It's also good for die cutting and layering. And the colored cardstocks are a little bit smoother than some of the other colored cardstocks. They have a variety of colors, not as many as a 65-pound, but there is a nice selection. And the price is good on those ones too. One of the other brands I mentioned earlier was the Accent Opaque Digital. Now, this is a cardstock that I've purchased from Amazon, and I found it to be quite comparable to some of the more expensive cardstocks. The Accent Opaque Digital has a 120-pound card base that has been the thickest card base that I could find. It is super heavyweight. It's a smooth cardstock. Now, when I use the phrase dry, this cardstock will apply to that. You can stamp on it, but I definitely use it for card bases, paper crafting, sort of building boxes and things like that. The 80-pound Accent Opaque Digital is a super smooth cardstock, so it's got a nice smooth finish. It's great for stamping. Sometimes I use this one for card bases as well. Because it's 80-pound, it's a little bit thicker than our average 65-pound cardstock, and it's got a nice weight to it. I buy the Accent Opaque Digital by the case, so you get 8 reams in a case, and I use mine for paper crafts and cards and all sorts of things, and I sell my things at craft shows, so I go through a lot of paper. So this may not be for everyone to buy that much paper at once, but I just like the price point on that. Speaking of price point, there's one more type of cardstock that I'd like to talk about, the Neenah cardstock. Now, all of the greatest card makers and YouTubers that make cards and videos use Neenah Classic Crest Solar White. It is a very popular cardstock brand. It is very nice. It's very smooth. It's great for stamping, great for card bases, and I don't have that one. In Canada, it is ridiculously priced. I know it's quite expensive in US, but in Canada, it's ridiculous. And I don't want to spend that much money on cardstock. So I found a comparable cardstock, which is a Neenah as well, and it's an Amazon exclusive. So I thought I would try it out to see if it was comparable to the other Neenah cardstock. This is where you can get fooled. If you buy cardstock that says 110 pounds and you don't look at the GSM, you may not understand why the cardstock is so thin. I don't really know how else to explain it. I'm not a scientist or an engineer. I'm a paper crafter. So not enough GSM in some 110-pound cardstocks. So I bought this anyways. This Amazon exclusive. It's got 300 sheets per ream. It's really nice. You know, to be honest, for the price, I think I paid $36 Canadian, which is like 10 cents US. No, I'm just kidding. I paid $36 Canadian for 2 reams of 300. So I got 600 sheets of this Neenah cardstock. It's a really nice, smooth cardstock. It's great for stamping. It's great for your layers. It's not a card base weight, although it does say 110 pounds, but the GSM is not up there. But I definitely recommend this cardstock for your stamping. The Neenah brand name speaks for itself. It's so highly spoken about across the YouTube platform for crafty peoples. Okay, so I think that's going to be enough about cardstock and brands and paper weight and GSM and all the things like that. Let's move into actually cutting up this paper and making some card bases. So we'll go over on how to make a few of the typical types of card bases that you'll most commonly see. But just remember, there are no rules here. You can make whatever size card base that you want to make. You can make it in any color, any shape, any size. It's your handmade card. It's your call. Okay, so starting off with the most typical common US card base that you're going to see, it's called an A2 size card base. The A2 size card is cut from a piece of cardstock that measures 8.5 inches by 11 inches. Now there are two ways to cut this cardstock to get two different folds on your A2 size card. So the first one is to cut it on the short side and cut it at 4¼ inches. That will give you two pieces of paper that measure 4¼ by 11. And then you take this to a scoreboard. And here I have a score buddy, and it has a scoring tool inside of it. Now you can use the scoring tool inside of it, and you can score this at 5½, which will give you our A2 size card base. That is a top folding card base because the fold is on the top and measures 4¼ by 5½. Or you can use a Teflon bone folder. My preference is the Teflon bone folder because it doesn't leave any sheen or any marks behind, whereas the typical plastic or cheapy ones will leave a little bit of a mark behind. The Teflon bone folder holds up well, it's durable, it's strong, it gives a nice sharp crease and doesn't leave any sheen behind. So I'm showing you what you can do with this score tool here. You can crease the edges on your card base. And I'm not sure if the camera can pick it up a little bit, but there is a little bit of a sheen. It's a little bit shiny on the edge where we wiped that bone folder across the crease. So even if that doesn't bother you and you're okay with that, then by all means go ahead and use the score tools that you have available to you. Or if you prefer the more sturdier bone folder that doesn't leave any markings behind, go with the Teflon. It can be quite a pricey investment to start with, just for something that creases paper, and you may not see the value in it, but over time you will thank yourself for buying it. So again, this is a top folding A2 size card base measuring 4¼ by 5½, and you will get two card bases out of one sheet of cardstock. Next, we'll take the same size piece of paper that measures 8½ inches by 11 inches, and we'll cut it sideways. So here we'll cut along the 11-inch side. So we have a piece of paper that measures 8½ by 11, typical standard letter size cardstock, and we'll cut it along the 11-inch side, and we'll cut it at 5½ inches. And this will give us two A2 size card bases, but these will be side folding card bases. And we'll go ahead and do the exact same thing, scoring on our scoreboard, but this measurement will be at 4¼ So the most important measurements for an A2 size card base are 4¼ and 5½. Creasing your cardstock and folding along the seam. Now this is very controversial. Everybody does things differently, and everybody has a personal preference. And my preference is to fold away from the crease. So I'll crease the cardstock and then fold my card away from where I have creased. Some people prefer to do it the other way, but I find I don't get any cracking along the spine of my card, and I get a nice sharp crease. Next card is going to be an A7. I'm taking a regular 8½ by 11 piece of cardstock, and I'm cutting it on the 8½ side, cutting it at 7 inches, and then turning it to the 11-inch side, and I'll cut that at 10 inches. Now you'll only get one card base out of a regular standard cardstock, and there's some strips left over, and you can use that for embellishing, using it for sentiments and things like that. So I always save those. I set those aside and save those for when I'm creating my cards. And then we'll take our card base and score down the center at 5 inches. So this will create our 5×7 card. Now because this is a little bit larger than my score buddy, I have to flip it over and score on both sides. Turning my cardstock away from where we've scored, and then crease the edges with my bone folder, and we'll have a nice sharp crease for a A7 card, which is a 5×7. And you can have it landscape or portrait. It works both ways, and you have lots of room for designing your elements. You can make any card any way you want. Any size, any shape, any orientation, whatever you want to do to design your card, because it's handmade and it's made by you. It's your personal touch. So this is an A2 side fold card. This is an A2 top fold card. And this one is an A7 or 5×7 card. I didn't write A7 on this card. I wrote 5×7. but that's what it is. A7, 7x5, 5x7, A7, A2, ABC, 1, 2, 3, EFG, things like that. This card making stuff can be quite technical, but at the end of the day, it really truly is your own designs. Do your own thing. I mean, don't listen to me or anybody else. You can make it a 12x12 and glue it together if you want. You don't have to score it. You don't have to fold it. You could tear it by hand. You don't have to have a paper cutter or trimmer or anything fancy. You can do whatever the heck you want. So there's one more card size that I'd like to show you, and this will fit into any regular size letter mail envelope that you may have. So I'm taking a regular piece of cardstock again, and I'm cutting it at 7 inches on the 8.5 side, and then I'm cutting it at 9 inches on the long side, on the 11-inch side. So I'll bring my cardstock to my scoreboard and I'll score at 3.5 inches, and because it's so long I'll have to turn it around to score the other side and bring it all the way across the 9 inches. And then again, using my bone folder to crease the fold to make sure we don't get any cracks, and then this will slip nicely into a regular office envelope. And this card measures 3.5 inches by 9 inches. You could probably get away with up to 4 inches by 9 inches. So if you wanted it a little bit larger, you could make it 8 inches by 9 inches, scored at 4, and you'll get a 4-inch by 9-inch card. So that's it for today's video. I know that's a whole lot of information to gather, but the best part is that you can save this video and come back to it if you need to refer to any of the information inside of it here today. I hope that I've given you a little bit of knowledge on cardstock and creating your card bases. Tune in next week for the next installment of Card Making Basics, the breakdown, where we'll be taking a look at envelopes, making your own with punch boards and limited tools as well. Coming up on screen are a few videos that I think you may enjoy, and I hope that you will click that like button and subscribe to my channel if you've enjoyed this content. Thank you so much for stopping by to spend some time with me here today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.